Today on Hebrew Book Review, 201 Hebrew Verbs and 501 Hebrew Verbs. Welcome back to Hebrew Book Review. I'm Sub here, and today I'm reviewing two books that are very similar. The one is called 201 Hebrew Verbs, and it's by Abraham S. Halkin. And this one is 501 Hebrew Verbs by Shmuel Borowski. And they are both put out by Barron's. I purchased these both in 1990 when I was studying Hebrew in college. You know, I thought I had this book in college, but that was 30 some odd years ago. And I see that the copyright date is 1996, and I was well out of college at that point. So maybe this book was actually written a lot later than I remember. But I do remember that the series that looked like this had, in other languages, they had 201 Spanish verbs and 501 Spanish verbs. But in Hebrew, this was the only one that looked like this that I could find in 1989, 1990 when I was looking for it. And it was written in 1970. Everyone had a book that looked like this. 201, or they also had the 501 Hebrew verbs. And it didn't matter, whatever language it was, there was the flag of that country right there. Almost everybody I knew had one of these. I never got one for Spanish. I didn't need it. But the Hebrew one, was, oh gosh, so necessary at the time. And the 501, I never saw any other book like this. But it was put out by Barron's then, and it's put out by Barron's now. But it might have a slightly different format now if you purchase a new book. But so this is the one that I have, and this is what it looks like. I'm going to be talking about the format. So a newer version of the book, like I said, this is 1990. A newer version of the book might look a lot different. So both of these books are going to be in, I don't even have this category. I'm putting them in a brand new category, reference books for adults. They are teaching the conjugations of verbs one by one, but that's not really the best way to learn verbs in Hebrew. The best way is to learn the regular conjugations of the binyanim and then learn what problem letters cause what changes in the conjugations. But these books like these are still extremely valuable because some shorashim have more than one problem letter, and then that can cause a total mess. And so books like these, my goodness, I would have never gotten through college without them. So they're definitely meant for adult learners. I mean, if you have a teenager, they might be good at using these as a reference, but a small child is not, or a child even my son's age is not going to want to look through a book like this. They're not so interested in actual conjugations as far as what I can see from my kid. They just want to speak, and they don't care if they're saying it right or not. There's no religiosity here. It's just a bunch of verb tables and information about the verbs. And both books have a very typical font. In this book, the font is pretty small. It's a lot smaller than a 12-point. In this book, it's also small, but a little bit bigger than the 201 book. There's no cursive anywhere, and the forms are generally given in Ktiv Chaser. Before using either of these books, the student needs to know their letters and their nikud, because there's no pronunciation guide anywhere. They expect you to be able to read a word using Hebrew letters only and be able to pronounce it. So both books basically give conjugation tables of all of the verbs. They list them in alphabetical order by shoresh, and then they give the conjugations of the verbs in past, present, and future, and also the imperative form. And this is really helpful because a lot of learners can tell that even though there are verbs of the same shoresh, they can see that, well, wait a second, there's a difference in the way these are conjugated, but they might not know why, and so they might not know how to do it correctly when they want to make a verb that they've never actually seen written before. So, for example, they might see that in the present tense, with li lemod, we have lomed, lomedet, lomdim, lomdot. But if we're doing lirtzot, to want, we have rotze, rotza, rotzim, rotzot. And they might not understand why we had rotza, but we had lomedet. The lomedet in the feminine singular had a taf at the end and an like o vowel pattern, whereas rotza has an o-a vowel pattern and there's no taf at the end, and so they might not understand why. So these books are not really going to teach them why, but they will teach them how to write each verb correctly. And also, like I said, some verbs have more than one problem letter. And even for me, I have completed level 8 at my Ulpan. They consider me a super advanced learner, but I still sometimes have to look up verbs, especially when I know that there's more than one problem letter. I always look those up because I want to make sure that I don't sound like a goofball when I'm writing Hebrew. And I have another friend who just bought this book and she's in Ulpan 7. It can be really helpful for a lot of us, even us more advanced students, even when we do know the binyanim and the gezarot. It can be a helpful resource, especially for us mevugarim, the more mature students. Some of us really like having a book to hold in our hands and actually look at the pages and kind of see how everything is arranged, more than looking something up on a computer. And both of the books have an English index in the back, so it's in English alphabetical order. So if you're looking for a verb that means to want, and you can't find the resh tzadi yod if you don't realize that that's the verb that means to want. So it's they've got just an index that's in English alphabetical order, and it helps you find the verb that you're looking for. Like I said, I purchased these when I was in college in the late 80s, early 90s, and everybody had one. I saw these books all over the place. Everybody that was studying a foreign language had one. And back then, you were not getting any information quickly any other way. So they were really, really an invaluable resource. 201 Verbs is really great for its presentation. Even though the font is pretty small, it has the shoresh at the top of every page. If you look at every page, they have the shoresh at the top. And so that makes it really easy to find the shoresh that you're looking for. Another thing is that it's organized with the same binyanim in the same location on every page. So if there's no binyan for this shoresh, it just leaves that blank. And that makes it easy to tell first of all, if you know what binyan you're looking for, you know where to look for it almost instantly. But also it shows, it kind of just shows you how many verbs are related with this one shoresh, and it kind of does help you see the relationship between all of the various verbs. You might be going to look at this one particular verb, but then it's right, you're right there on the page, so you might as well look, oh, this one means to turn or to change, and this one of course means to be turned or be changed, and now this one means to reverse, to go, like to reverse a thing, like maybe a law or something. And then this other one means to turn over, like to roll over. And so that itself really helps you kind of see the relationships between all of the verbs of a single shoresh. And also because of this format, if the shoresh has a verb in any particular binyan, they include it here, even if it's a more rare verb. So that's not the case with the other book. So the shortcomings of this book is that it doesn't have as many verbs. Of course, it has 201 versus 501. And then also, it doesn't give really any more information about the verb. It does tell you the main meaning, right? As like one or two definitions, single word definitions for each verb, each binyan. But that's it. It doesn't tell you really anything else about the verb. So it's kind of bare bones in that sense. So here's 501 Hebrew verbs, and here's that exact same shoresh, hey, pei, kaf. And you can see that the presentation, I don't know if you can see it, you can see that the presentation is a little bit messier. First of all, the shoresh doesn't start at the top of the page. This is the leftover from the page before. And so sometimes they can be anywhere within the page. I think they just did that to save space. That makes sense. But it makes it a lot more difficult for us to actually find the shoresh that we're looking for. But what it does do is it gives a lot more information. First of all, it's 501 verbs, not 201 verbs. So it has more verbs, it has more shorashim. And for the verbs that it gives conjugations for, it also will give what prepositions go with that verb, which is so important. And it will also tell you like what it means specifically with that preposition. And then it also gives a little more information about how to use the word. It'll give some example sentences. This one also has special expressions or bituim. It's just like idiomatic phrases. Although you might want to be careful with a book that was written back in 1996. If you get this version, it might be these might be a little old-fashioned. They might be considered a little bit old-fashioned. And that's true with any book, any teaching book, or even just a book that you're reading for pleasure, or for pleasure or for reading practice. It's great to read older books, even though they have older expressions that we maybe don't use anymore. But you do want to be careful about using an expression or a word like that in your own daily speech, because it'll make you sound maybe a little bit literary or sound a little bit odd. And of course, when we're trying to speak Hebrew, we don't want to sound odd. We want to sound like all of the Hebrew speakers. I love that it has the prepositions, because that is so important, because we need to know the prepositions. I always talk about how prepositions don't necessarily, there's no rhyme or reason to prepositions. Every preposition that goes with a verb, it's going to be different for every language. And so you really need to learn the prepositions that go with the verb when you learn the verb. And so this book does actually do a great job of helping you with that. So the two things I don't like about this one is, like I said, the shoresh is not always on the top of the page, right? Look at this one. It's kind of in the middle. And it's also, the other thing is that it doesn't actually give all of the conjugations for the less common binyanim of any particular root. So for example, this root, hey, pei, kaf, it says, infrequent verbs sharing the same root. And it shows that there's a PL verb and, of course, a PUAL verb. And there's also a HIFIL and a HUFAL. And they kind of just give you, like, a general idea of what, like, the base word in each of the tenses for each of those binyanim is. But they don't give you the whole kit and caboodle like they do with the other ones. And as I mentioned, the print in both of these books is pretty small. It's not as small as a dictionary. I've seen some dictionaries that I can barely get through without a magnifying glass. So they're not that small, but it's pretty small. They're trying to get a lot of information in as few pages as possible. So the print ends up being pretty tiny, which is not so easy for us with older eyes. And the other thing is that especially for the younger generation, both of these books are pretty much obsolete because now with the internet, we have pealim.com, which is a completely free website. It does have ads all over it. Sometimes they get annoying, but it's a free website. It's there in your phone. I go through it. They do have an app, but I always get to pealim.com through Chrome on my phone, and it makes it so easy to just look for the verb that I'm looking for and find pretty much all of the same information as you find here. And with pealim.com, you can, not only is it all in your phone, which we all have with us all the time, but also when it gives you the shoresh of a verb, it's always a hyperlink, and you can go and find all of the verbs and other words that are related to that shoresh. And so pealim.com, pealim means verb. So it sounds like it's going to be a website that gives the exact same information as books like these, but it in fact gives information on all kinds of words, nouns, adjectives, prepositions, all kinds of words. You can zoom in on the words if they're too small. It kind of makes a book like this obsolete. But on the other hand, books like this kind of automatically show you all of the verbs that are related to each other because they're all there under the same shoresh. Whereas pealim.com, you do have to go looking for other words of the same shoresh if you're interested. So I do think that they are valuable if you are a person who likes to have a reference book. I'm one of these people. I'm really glad that I still have these books. But if you are a person who likes this, then both of these books are super, super valuable. Now, my friend who looked at both of these books, she was interested in getting one of them because we were talking about it. She bought 201 Hebrew verbs. She did not buy the 501. She didn't like the style, the layout on the page. It was a little too distracting for her. So that is just one external person's observation, that she too found it a little bit, that she found the layout a little bit weird in the 501 verbs book. So now you know what I think of 201 Hebrew Verbs and 501 Hebrew Verbs, both put out by Barron's. They're a great resource if you are a person who likes books, but if you're a person who's really happy using online resources to find your information, these books give you very little that pealim.com won't give you. And pealim.com is free. All right, so thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, please leave it in the comments. And if you have any book that you'd like me to review, please leave that in the comments and I will try to get my hands on it and do a review for you. Hit like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to see more. See you next time.